to have a programming language to enter useful programs so you don't have to push buttons to get ones and zeros into memory. 4K dynamic memory was the key. The 4K dynamic memory chip came out that summer and of our club, and I bought some of those. You could afford, for maybe about $50, you could get 4 KB of memory. Every other little hobby computer in the world that was saying these new inexpensive machines are going to change society, change the world, they were all using expensive static memories. Nobody else was being a good designer. Because dynamic memories, just like the memory in all your computer products to this day, has to be refreshed over and over, and it takes extra circuitry. But I was an engineer, and I saved 24 memory chips, and it only cost me about 5 chips to keep it from forgetting what it knew. Well, this club, we had meetings, and people were talking about how computers were going to alter education. A student was going to be given a problem, type in their answer, and be corrected instantly. Oh, they were going to use 100% of their brain instead of just 10% of it, like in normal schools. And I got scared. I got scared that all these youngsters were going to be smarter than me now. Of course, I do feel that in quite a bit of ways. We also talked about communication. You were going to be able to type a message to a big computer over a modem. And other people with modems would dial in, and 100 people in an hour could read the message and find out that the war protest march had been moved to a different street, or whatever you had to communicate. And we also had the idea that the young person who knew how to program a computer could write programs to solve the problems of life. That person could take their own little computer into work. They could type in their company's financial data, and out would come the answers of what the company should do. Much better programming than the big, huge $1 million computers the companies already had. Much better than the high-paid programmers could create. A 10-year-old would write a better program. I loved these social ideas and thoughts. So when I designed my computer, I took it down to the club. I demonstrated it, and I passed out my designs to everybody for free. No copyright notices, no nothing. Here it is. Build your own. Help this revolution get started. Help it happen. It was so important to me. Well, Steve Jobs came back down from Oregon once, and he came to a club meeting, and he saw the interest in my computer. People wanted to build it, but they didn't have building skills like I did. Well, Steve Jobs said, let's start a company and make a pre-built PC board. All they do is plug their chips in, and they just solder them in, and it saves them all the time and effort. We'll make this PC board for $20 and sell it for $40. Now, Steve thought that way because he had worked briefly for a surplus electronics store where they would buy switches for 6 cents and sell them for $60. They knew what things had what value, and he was used to being able to, sell very low-cost type things. A lot of things in a surplus electronics store, they might have bought them for a penny, but they'll sell them for $3. That's the only place you can even buy chips. So he wanted to sell this small little ingredient. And, we'd have to invest a few $100s each. We were young. We were in our young 20s. We had no money. We had no savings accounts. We had no parents or friends that could loan us money that were rich. We had no business experience. We had not taken a single business course or read a book in university. But, I said, I didn't think we were going to make money, and Steve said, yeah, but for once in our lives, we'll have a company. We've been doing so many things together. Well, who could turn that down? As soon as somebody said, you don't have to make a profit, I'm in. I'm doing it for other reasons. I did love my company, Hewlett Packard, so much. I was going to be an engineer for life. I didn't want to move up the org chart and boss others. I didn't want to get political. I didn't want to fire people. I didn't want to tell them bad things about what they were doing. So I was going to be an engineer for life. And this company was like family to me. During the recession, a lot of companies laid off 10% of their people, let them out on the street without a job, without an income. Hewlett Packard instead reduced everyone's salary by 10% and gave us every other Friday off, which was great for a young engineer. So the youngest person in the lab didn't get fired. I really admired them for that. And it was treating us all like we all work together and we're all friends of each other, and we help each other out. Those of us who have give to help those of us who need. So I would never do anything behind Hewlett-Packard's back, and I would never quit my job. So I went to Hewlett-Packard, and I pleaded with them. I described the computer that they could build for $800 with color and everything, and they turned me down. And they turned me down for some good reasons. Hewlett-Packard would have built the wrong computer. They wouldn't have built a nice, fun machine that belongs in a home. They would have built a dull, boring machine that engineers look at and know how to use. So it's a good thing Hewlett-Packard turned me down for the first of 5 times. It wound up turning me down quite a few times. So Steve and I were off with our own little company. We got another friend to come in with us, and he typed up a little partnership agreement. It wasn't a full corporation or anything. We did things, what you can do with no money. How do you start a company with no money was part of the problem. And we had a little partnership, 3 of us. Ron Wayne had 10%. He wound up selling his 10% out for later on for just a few $100s. But he was afraid that if there was any financial problems, Steve Jobs had no money, Steve Wozniak had no money, so he was going to have to pay. So that was part of his thinking. And he really didn't think that it was going to go far. You know, even our parents told us we were working more hours than we could ever really say we were making money. We weren't really making money yet, and with some of our little projects. But we were young, and we were having fun, and we had our own little company named Apple Computer, and how neat it was to always be at the top of the charts in alphabetic order. Steve was always questioning taking these computers to a much further place. Me, I'm working on coming up with clever designs that never existed before, to put color into a machine when nobody ever thought they'd get color in a computer, a low-cost computer from day one. Nobody ever thought they'd have graphics where things could move around on a screen, and you could program games by just changing numbers in memory. Nobody thought you'd have pixels on the screen, like photographs. All these things were in the Apple II. Game paddles for game playing built in, and it was fewer and fewer parts than any computer that had ever been designed in history, really. So it was an amazing, amazing machine we had, but Steve was always asking, can you add a disk? I said, yes, you can someday, because I know you can always add everything, but my head is working on getting all the code done, getting the computer doing all of its things. I had to write a computer language. Remember, you don't have a useful computer unless you can type in your own programs to solve problems. Well, there was no programming language that came with this microprocessor I bought for $20. Bill Gates had written a language called BASIC for the Intel microprocessors. Now, I thought, Bill Gates, his name got famous in our club. Everybody knew the name Bill Gates had written a BASIC. And I had never taken a class in writing programming languages, but I had thought about it for quite a few years in my life, how to do it. And I decided if I write the first basic programming language, had to be BASIC. That was what was going to take over the world because there were a lot of games in BASIC. If I write the first one for my microprocessor, I'll get famous like Bill Gates in my club. They'll know my name. And I sat down and I had 2 purposes in my language. At Hewlett-Packard, where I worked, we had a big computer. And everyone had to take turns signing up to get on one at a time, which we engineers would run our programs and test things out. And I wrote a lot of programs to test my circuit designs. I wanted my own computer to be able to solve all those problems and do that work for me, so I didn't have to use Hewlett-Packard's, my company's computer anymore. And I also wanted to play games. That was very, very important to me. I came from a big game background. So anyway, well, we started out with this computer that we called the Apple I computer. Changing point in history. Every computer before the Apple I had a big front panel with switches and lights, just like I had built 5 years before, and buttons you can push to get things in the mirror. Every computer looked intimidating and awful and ugly, and by taking advantage of new technologies that let me include on a couple of chips a small little program that watched what I typed, and it used a television set that was free for output, all of a sudden every computer since the Apple I has now had a keyboard and a video display. So anyone looking over my shoulder, the formula was out of how to make it. Well, we started selling this little Apple I, the boards. We were going to sell the boards for $40, and right away Steve came to me. The local store, there was one computer store in our entire Silicon Valley area, and they wanted to buy completely built computers with all the parts. They gave us a $50,000 order. I had to sell my most valuable possession in the world to get a few $100s to finance this company. And we had a $50,000 order. How do you build the computers when you have no money? We got the parts on 30 days credit. We had 30 days to pay for them. We built up the computers and tested them in 10 days and drove them down to the store and got paid cash. That was how we did it. The garage was a nice little hangout in our front, but we didn't really do any business there. We never did any computer design there. We didn't do phone calls to stores to sell our computer. We didn't do phone calls to part suppliers to get parts. We didn't do phone calls to the press to get publicity. Steve did all that from his bedroom. There was no phone out in the garage. The computers were manufactured at a place in Santa Clara. We would drive into the garage and then put the computers down. I would plug them together, look at them, and if it worked, good. If it didn't work, I'd fix it, and we'd put the computer in a little white box to drive to the store and get paid cash. That was how we ran it for this little garage period. But before we ever shipped an Apple I computer, I had designed the Apple II from the ground up, based around color. And here it was, the world that people never expected in computers. Steve and I looked at it. I typed a number on a keyboard, and a blue square popped up on my TV screen. I typed another number, and another yellow square popped up. And we looked at each other, and we knew this product was going to be incredible. My engineer friends at Hewlett-Packard, even though I've been turned down 3 times so far, my engineer friends said this was the best product they've ever seen in their life. Steve and I weren't going to give this one away for free. Problem is, we could sell 1,000 of them now. This world of computers was getting huge. We were going to change the world. We were going to sell 1,000. Whoa, the world was changing. And the trouble is, where do you get the money to build 1,000 when you have no money? We started looking at companies that might take us on, that would give us money, venture capitalists. We finally found an angel, Mike Markowitz, and he joined us. He invested $250,000. He owned as much stock as Steve Jobs and myself. You never hear about him because he didn't come from the bottom up, having done the Apple I computers. He taught us how to run a company, what kind of people we had to hire, what our job responsibilities were, and how to be professional. And so he, more than anyone else, really made Apple a successful company